Hi everyone, I'm Ioana Mihai, and I'm supervised by Cami Caldwin and Rob Ward, and I will be presenting some data on our research on the development of social attention in scenes. So first of all, I want to give you a bit of background and the scientific context of our research before discussing the two experiments. So plenty of social cognition literature has established that the exquisite nature of human beings, where a good understanding of social rules seem to lead to social success. In fact, that means that we have a pretty easy and ready processing of social interaction, of social information, and that allows us to understand other people's intentions and mental states, to give an easy judgment of other people and choose future interaction partners, besides behavior prediction. Additionally, this skill set is present since very early in life. That means that given the human interest in social information, we seem to have developed since very early in life a preference to attend to social information compared to non-social information. And we will refer to this as a social attentional bias or human bias across the whole talk. Indeed, in naturalistic and cluttered scenarios, it's easy and preferred for us to process faces, bodies, and eyes. And this seems to be pretty independent of low-level features in the scenes. Again, research and development has pretty much focused on the infancy and infants' preference for faces and gaze. But there are very few childhood studies, and the ones that are out there show, some of them do show a social bias also in pre-adolescence, and some of them show very contrasting results as for the developmental change in these patterns of attention. Additionally, this research has used mostly single humans. And we know that humans do have the potential for social interactions. In fact, if we think about it, social interactions are a unique source of social cues. They allow us social understanding and understanding of relationships and intentions. And since very early in life, we use interactions for social learning, for the moral rules and social roles, and again, more accurate action prediction. Additionally, the literature shows also a social interaction bias. In the first place, they seem to be processed differently, as, for example, the presence of an interactor can enhance the perception of one agent and noise, or diet seems to be processed as more than just the sum of the single agents, but more as a meaningful chunk of information. Additionally, brain data has started to show that we might have some specialized brain structures for this kind of information. And importantly, in visual search tasks, facing dyads seem to have a pretty strong search advantage. And they do show an inversion effect as well, suggesting a potential configural processing of this information. So why might we want to study social interactions in development? Well, there are some studies on the early ability that we have to process and prefer facing items compared to non-facing social items. And there is one study that suggests that children also at 9 years old prefer facing human silhouettes compared to non-facing human silhouettes. Additionally, the PSCS and other social brain regions that are typically involved in the perception of social interactions are not yet tuned at 6 years old. Finally, studies on ASD children would suggest that the clutter and the complexity of the scene and the presence of a social interaction in the scene seem to be the best predictors for social attention difficulties in ASD. But the research does show a gap in this regard. So most of this research has used isolated and tightly controlled stimuli without background or context. And there was no clear manipulation in scenes or of the number of people or the social interactions. And we know that real life scenes are noisy, cluttered, and we are often presented with different social targets competing for our attention, such as multiple humans. So in this work, we attempted to respond different research questions. We wanted to clarify the developmental changes in the human bias in more complex scenarios, understand the attention to interacting dyads in childhood, understand the changes in the social brain when an interaction is in the scene, and understand how this interactive dyad's attention competes for our attention with other social targets. So the general methods are the same for the two studies. The data was collected on the same subjects and within the same session. The participants were 97 adults and 53 children, 6 to 11 years old, collected in a local school. And the task was to freely explore for 5 seconds each picture of social information. The data was collected with an eye tracker with a remote setup. The data analysis started with the definition of areas of interest for each picture. We defined the social areas of interest as the whole body of each human in the scene, and the non-social information as the background or everything else that was not human in the scene. The measures were the proportional dwelling time in each area of interest as a measure for attentional engagement, and the time to first fixation in each area of interest for attentional capture. In the first study, we simply wanted to clarify the developmental changes in the social bias in scenes, investigate whether social interactions influence this social attention bias, and how the attention to interacting bias changes across development. So we used 30 pictures showing 2 people interacting for the interactive condition, and 30 pictures depicting 2 people not interactive for the non-interactive condition. The analysis was a mixed ANOVA with age group as a between subjects factor across all pictures, and area of interest type, social or non-social, and interactive content as a within subjects factor. We expected that the human bias would be present in both age groups, as indicated by more time spent looking at the human AOIs and more capture compared to the background. And we expected this to be stronger in the interactive pictures and stronger in the adults compared to the children. These are 2 examples of the pictures that we used for our study. In this first of the results, so red is social, blue is non-social. In the first place, we can see a clear human bias in both groups in the interactive scenes. Participants look for longer at the human part of the scene in the interactive scenes compared to the background. This effect seems to disappear in the non-interactive scenes, and we see that this interaction difference is slightly milder in the children. Similarly, human areas of interest capture attention before everything in both groups and in both types of scenes. The capture is stronger in the interactive scenes and compared to non-interactive scenes in both groups. So what we can conclude from this first study is that both groups do show an attentional bias towards human information. Children are slower to be captured by human information compared to adults, but this is not true for the non-human information. Adults show an interaction bias. They look more at the interactive humans compared to the non-interactive humans, and children show this effect to a lesser extent. In the second study, we wanted to complicate things a little bit. So we wanted to replicate the findings of the first study to clarify the developmental changes in the social attention in even more complex scenarios, investigate attention to interacting dyads in these scenes, and investigate the attention to interactions when other competing targets are present in the scene, and how this happens in childhood. So to do this, we used 30 pictures showing 3 people. In half of the pictures, there was a social interaction in the structure of 2 people interacting and 1 non-interactant. We used 22 pictures showing 4 people. Half of these pictures contain the social interaction in the structure, 2 people interacting and 2 people non-interacting. The first level analysis is very similar to the analysis in the first study. We used all pictures with age group as a between subjects factor and AOI type and interactive content as a within subjects factor. In the second level analysis, we wanted to investigate the competition between the social interactions and other agents in the scene. So we used only the pictures containing social interactions. Again, with age group as a between subjects factor, the number of people in the scene and type of human as a within subjects factor. We expected to replicate the human bias in both groups, first to be stronger in the interactive scenes and stronger in adults than in children. And for the attentional priority, we expected that both groups will prefer social interactions in the presence of competing social targets, either one or other two people. This preference to be stronger in adults versus children. So in this first set of results, we again show that both groups looked for longer at the human social area of the human area of interest compared to the background. And unexpectedly, this human bias seems to be reduced in the interactive scenes. Additionally, the adult human bias is stronger than in children, but there are no developmental differences in the non-social information. Similarly, capture is stronger for social information, and there seems to be no effect of the presence of a social interaction in the scene. So what we can conclude from this first set of results is that the human attentional bias is reconfirmed also in these complex scenes, unsurprisingly. But the interaction in the scene seems to have very mixed effects that we are currently looking into. Adults do look for longer and quicker at humans compared to children, and there are no age differences in the attention to non-social information. In the second set of results, in orange, we have the interactive people in the scene, and in green, the non-interactive people in the same scene. We see that both groups, independently of the number of the people in the scene, engage most of the attention to the scene to the humans, in the interactive humans. And this effect is unsurprisingly stronger in the three people pictures. As for the attentional capture, both groups are quicker to attend to the interactive dyad than other humans. And adults do show this in all sets of pictures, while children seem to show only a trend for the four people pictures. Unsurprisingly, this effect is stronger for the three people pictures where the competitor is only one. So if we can conclude and summarize these results, we show that both age groups show an attentional priority within the interactive pictures, as shown by the fact that they look for longer and quicker at the interactive dyad than other social targets in the scene, be it one person or other two people. Children show a milder effect in this regard compared to adults. And so if we can conclude, what is the take-home message for this results? So we show throughout these two experiments that the attentional bias towards social information is present in childhood and also in naturalistic scenarios, and it doesn't depend on the number of social targets in the scene. The attentional engagement, the children show slower and shorter capture by social information compared to adults, and the attention to non-social information shows no changes with age. In adulthood, social interactions increase social attention by capturing and engaging it when the scene depicts two people, and children show this to a lesser extent. And importantly, when put in competition with other social targets, social interactions receive priority and engagement and in capture. Thank you for your attention.